And it's these connections, these relationships, that are founded in the earliest years of our lives.
From the gates of Buckingham Palace to the quiet corridors behind its walls, one name has come to define a new chapter in royal history: Catherine, Princess of Wales. But what happens when the woman who has charmed a nation makes the unthinkable choice to leave it all behind? Tonight, we tell the story of how Catherine walked out of the palace after receiving a secret demand, and why her step may change the monarchy forever. It was a crisp spring morning when the palace bells rang out. The year was 2025, and Buckingham Palace prepared for another day of duties: garden parties, state meetings, photo calls. Across the mall, tourists snapped pictures. Inside, staff set tables for tea. Everything seemed the same. Yet, by nightfall, Catherine's absence would be the only thing anyone could talk about. Catherine Elizabeth Middleton was not born into a royal family. She grew up in Bucklebury, a small village in Berkshire, England, where her childhood was filled with school plays, family holidays, and normal routines. Her parents ran a party supply business, and Catherine attended the local day school. No palace, no gilded gates, just rolling fields and friendly neighbors. At age 13, she won a place at Marlborough College, a boarding school with a long history. There, teachers noticed her calm confidence and sense of kindness. She joined the netball team, studied art history, and learned to balance hard work with a gentle spirit. Friends from those years still recall her ready laugh and the way she made everyone feel included. In 2001, Catherine enrolled at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. She planned to study history and art, but life had other plans. In her first term, she met Prince William of Wales. William was studying geography. Catherine was in his tutorial group. They became friends, going to lectures, sharing lunches, walking the cobbled streets of St. Andrews. Their friendship slowly turned into romance. By 2004, they were quietly dating. William later told the BBC that what struck him was Catherine's steady spirit. She wasn't impressed by titles or fame. She listened and she cared. Their private courtship lasted 3 years before the world learned of Will and Kate. On December 16, 2010, Kensington Palace announced William's engagement to Catherine. He presented her with his late mother Diana's engagement ring, a stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds. Catherine later said in an ITV interview, "It felt right. It felt like sharing a piece of her with me." The wedding on April 29, 2011, at Westminster Abbey drew a global TV audience of 2 billion people. Catherine's gown, made of ivory satin and lace, hung on the arm of her future role, a future queen. Yet behind the scenes, palace aides already sensed Catherine's ease under pressure. Where other royals felt the glare of publicity, Catherine smiled and waved, connecting with crowds lining the mall. As Princess of Wales, Catherine took on charities for children's mental health, early education, and homelessness. She joined Harry and Meghan at the Invictus Games in 2017, showing support for veterans. She stood by William as he championed mental health awareness through Heads Together. Slowly, she built her own legacy, one not defined by her husband's title, but by her own actions. In 2017, she stood beside her sister-in-law Meghan Markle at Harry's wedding, and again in 2018, when the Sussexes spoke of modernizing the royal brand. That moment hinted at new approaches and new tensions within the wider family. In late 2024, Charles's announcement of cancer treatment marked a turning point. He chose to retire from horseback at Trooping the Colour and rode instead in a carriage. Camilla, his queen consort, rode beside him, until William's place was quietly given to Catherine. The public cheered, but behind palace doors, staff spoke of upset and surprise. By early 2025, palace insiders whisper that Charles, aware of his limited time, delivered a private ultimatum to Catherine. Sources say he asked her to either fully step into a more powerful, open role as the monarchy's future face, or to step back and protect her family's privacy. The demand stunned Catherine. To some, it felt like a choice between duty and self. On March 12, 2025, Catherine attended a late dinner at Clarence's house with Charles, Camilla, William, Harry, and Meghan. Cameras captured relaxed smiles as they arrived. But inside, an intense discussion unfolded. William recounted to friends that Charles spoke of spare capacity and public weariness. He reportedly told Catherine, "The people need a clear figurehead. We need you to stand forward or step back." Meghan later mentioned in a podcast that family meetings had grown tense since Harry's Netflix deal, and that Catherine felt torn between two worlds, her growing empathy-driven work and the demands of ritual. That same evening, Catherine left the dinner early. She did not join the after-party at Buckingham Palace. Instead, a single black car pulled up outside Kensington Palace at midnight. Catherine stepped inside, alone, and 20 minutes later, she drove north toward her family home in Bucklebury. She took only a small case. By sunrise, the palace spokespeople released a brief statement. Princess Catherine has decided to take an extended private break. She remains devoted to her duties and will return when ready. For the public, and for the staff who found the empty rooms, this was a walkout. Some said, "Goodbye forever." Others hoped it was just a pause. The morning after Kensington Palace announced Catherine's departure, the world woke to breaking headlines. Newspapers asked aloud what had driven her to leave at the height of her influence. On live television, royal correspondents replayed footage of Catherine slipping into that black car, her face calm yet determined. Social media feeds overflowed with disbelief and support. What does this mean for the monarchy? Viewers wondered. Will she ever return? Within hours, unofficial sources inside the palace began to speak. One aide confided to a Sunday paper that Catherine had felt trapped between duty and privacy. She adored her work at the hospital, her visits to schools, and the children's projects she championed. But the secret pressure, first from courtiers, then from the king himself, to stand ever closer in the public eye had grown unbearable. When Charles offered her a stark choice, embrace full public leadership or withdraw, she chose the latter. William, still reeling, made a rare public comment 2 days later. Standing before St. James's Palace, he thanked well-wishers for messages of concern. He spoke of Catherine's need for time to reflect and of his unwavering admiration for her kindness and strength. He asked for privacy, reminding the public that she was, above all, a devoted mother. When a journalist pressed him on whether she would return to official duties, he offered only a gentle smile and said, "That decision is hers alone." Few had ever seen William so vulnerable. In private, friends say he paced the long walk at Windsor, wrestling with the prospect of raising their children without Catherine by his side. Yet he refused to portray her choice as a betrayal. Instead, he framed it as an act of self-care, something he hoped would inspire others to honor their own boundaries. Meanwhile, Camilla Parker Bowles, whose closeness to the king was well known, stepped into a more visible role. At her next engagement, presiding over an investiture at the palace's throne room, she wore a pale lavender gown and spoke with measured warmth about service and sacrifice. Reports from attendees described her as composed, though the simplicity of her remarks hinted at a deeper emotional weight. "Duty sometimes demands unexpected sacrifices," she said, her voice even but her eyes steady. Observers noted that she never mentioned Catherine by name, but every phrase carried a double meaning. Harry and Meghan watched from afar. In California, Harry recorded a brief video message for Centibale, the charity he co-founded, expressing his wish that Catherine find peace and urging the royal family to lift each other up in respect and understanding. Meghan tweeted a single sentence, "May we all honor our journeys," and left it at that. Their restraint earned praise from commentators who saw it as a sign of maturing perspective. Back in London, the king moved quickly to reassure the nation. In a filmed address from the White Drawing Room, Charles spoke of Catherine's indelible contribution to causes close to his heart and praised her unique ability to connect with people of all ages. He stopped short of directly addressing her departure, but he stressed the importance of mental health support and the right to private rest. The speech was widely seen as a balm to a worried public, though some critics called it a carefully crafted piece of crisis management. At Kensington Palace, Catherine spent her days quietly. She balanced long walks in nearby parks with afternoons spent reading letters from well-wishers. Friends say she was buoyed by messages from school children thanking her for their new library and from veterans praising her hospital visits. She worked from home on upcoming initiatives, virtual conferences on early childhood development, and a podcast series on family resilience. These projects, she hoped, would allow her to continue serving without the glare of red carpet arrivals. Inside the palace's inner circle, debate raged over how, or whether, to invite her back. Traditionalists argued that a princess must not abandon her post. Modernists countered that Catherine's mental well-being was more important than protocol. Some suggested a compromise. She could return in a reduced role, focusing on behind-the-scenes work. Others feared any invitation would feel like a reversal of her hard-won independence. Meanwhile, William took on more public duties. He attended the Earthshot Prize ceremony, delivering a heartfelt speech about environmental stewardship. He visited a children's hospice, sharing laughter with young patients. In each appearance, his voice carried an edge of quiet determination, as if to prove that the monarchy would endure even amidst personal upheaval. The question of succession also resurfaced. With Catherine absent, some wondered if Camilla might assume more of the Princess of Wales's duties, blurring the lines between Queen Consort and Princess Regent. Others speculated that Harry might return from California to support William, a prospect that the BBC's royal editor described as fanciful, but not impossible. For the first time in decades, the public faced a royal family without its brightest star at the forefront. Through it all, Catherine's footprints remained visible. Websites chronicled her past engagements, looping videos of her comforting tears at the Chelsea Flower Show and her radiant smile at the Jubilee concert. Royal watchers flooded fan pages with hope. Could she someday come back, strengthened by her break? Each post bore an undercurrent of longing not just for her return, but for a monarchy that felt human. Gradually, the palace adapted. The schedule for Trooping the Colour 2026 listed William and Harry sharing a carriage in support of their father. Camilla's title was updated discreetly on official websites, listing her as King's Companion with new patronages. And Catherine's major charity projects were entrusted to boards that included her close friends and former aides, ensuring her vision continued. By midsummer, Catherine surprised no one and delighted many by sending a short video statement at a conference on early childhood. She spoke of her time away, how she had rediscovered joy in simple moments, and how she intended to return when my heart and mind are ready. It was just 60 seconds long, but it carried the promise of hope. The public responded with applause emojis and exclamations of "Welcome back." In the weeks that followed, palace insiders reported plans for her gradual re-entry. She would start with small, low-key visits, a children's reading event at a local library, a community garden opening, a tea with service families at Sandhurst. Only later would she step back onto the balcony for a state occasion or a ride in full public view. As the autumn leaves turned, the family gathered once more at Sandringham for Christmas. Catherine arrived at the church door, wearing a deep green coat, her hair softly framing her face. She paused, shared a private smile with William, and entered solemnly. Camilla, walking a step ahead, offered her an arm. In that moment, cameras caught not tension, but reconciliation. No one spoke of ultimatums, nor of permanent goodbyes. Instead, the palace released a simple line. The Princess of Wales is pleased to resume her public work in stages, balancing her private needs with commitments to the nation she serves. It was a carefully worded return, an invitation rather than an order, a choice rather than a demand. By the time Catherine attended her first major gala in February, the story had shifted. Journalists praised her courage, not her absence. The public cheered her return, not her departure. And though the memory of that secret ultimatum lingered in palace lore, it no longer defined her chapter. Instead, it became a note in her biography. The moment she chose herself, only to choose the people again. Through all of this, the monarchy learned a lesson, that tradition and well-being can coexist, that a royal can step back without surrendering her duty, and that the love of a nation is strongest when met with honesty. Princess Catherine's walkout was never a final exit. It was, instead, a detour on a path she would continue to walk, with grace, strength, and a clear understanding of what it means to serve. And so, as a new spring dawned over them all, the palace gates stood open once more. The Princess of Wales returned, but on her own terms. The world watched, and learned that sometimes the greatest act of duty is the courage to choose yourself. The palace gates stood still that early morning, but something was different. Royal staff members, typically busy and discreet, exchanged nervous glances. A single vehicle left the royal premises, and within it sat Catherine, Princess of Wales, wearing no royal insignia. Her face was calm, but her departure was anything but routine. It wasn't just a drive. It was an exit from the life she had carefully shaped herself into for more than a decade. This wasn't the first time the royal family was rocked by a personal decision. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had shocked the world when they announced their royal exit in early 2020. But Catherine? She had always been seen as the steady one, the future queen consort, the symbol of loyalty. Her walking away sent waves through the media, the public, and the palace itself. The Queen, Charles, Camilla, William, each had their own reactions. King Charles III, who has faced criticism for his strained relationships within the family, reportedly called an emergency meeting at Clarence House. There was no press release, no video statement, just stunned silence from the institution that thrives on control. William was seen the next day at a charity event, trying to keep up appearances. But the smile never reached his eyes. Behind the scenes, aides claimed he was absolutely blindsided. This wasn't just a marital crisis, it was a constitutional one. With the monarchy already under scrutiny post-Megxit, another departure could destabilize the very image they were trying to preserve. Speculations about the secret ultimatum Catherine received were now everywhere. Royal commentators debated whether it came from Charles, perhaps asking her to step up her royal duties further in the face of the monarchy's declining popularity. Others suggested it came from inside, Catherine herself, setting a line she could no longer allow to be crossed. Years of pressure, public expectations, and private sacrifices had finally reached a boiling point. Reports started leaking. Catherine had asked for more control over her children's lives, less exposure, fewer public outings. There were whispers that Prince George was starting to understand the cost of being a royal, and Catherine, as a mother first, couldn't bear to see history repeat itself. Not after watching what happened to Diana. Not after seeing how Harry and Meghan were treated when they tried to shield Archie and Lilibet. Outside the palace, reactions were just as intense. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #WeStandWithCatherine and #RoyalShock trended worldwide. News anchors on both sides of the Atlantic compared her move to Diana's final years. Some supported her, calling it an act of quiet courage. Others criticized her for abandoning duty during a fragile time. But Catherine wasn't hiding. A few days later, she was spotted in Berkshire, near her parents' home. No security convoy. No palace protection. Just a simple black coat and sunglasses. A local woman said she looked calm, but sad. Like she'd been through a lot. Journalists tried to reach out. So did the palace. But there was no formal word from Catherine. Not yet. And that silence spoke louder than any speech. Behind closed doors, the royal family scrambled. Could they convince her to return? Should they go public or keep it quiet? Prince William reportedly made several attempts to visit her privately, but it was unclear if she accepted. Meanwhile, comparisons to Harry and Meghan grew louder. The media revisited their infamous Oprah interview, where Meghan described feeling unsupported and unheard. Now, they wondered if Catherine had finally experienced the same. The monarchy was at a crossroads again. One princess had walked out in pain. Another had walked out in protest. Now, the one who had stayed the longest, stayed the quietest, was gone too. And the world waited to see if she was ever coming back.